Thank you for joining us. I hope you've had a good day so far. And without further ado, I'd like to share with you maybe an opening presentation, just to kind of clear up some misconceptions and lay some groundwork about what STEM subjects are, perhaps some generalised points about career opportunities in that sector. Here we go. Okay, so hopefully we can all see the presentation, the holding slide there. Please let us know in the chat if there are some difficulties. My esteemed IT colleague Louis Meredith is here behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly from this end. So if you do have any problems, just drop a line in the chat, and Louis will be able to, I'm sure, sort that out for you. So this is what we're going to talk about and discuss this afternoon. We're going to talk about STEM. I'm sure you're all pretty clued up, but just in case we're not, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering and maths. And what the government have identified and what employers and skills providers have identified is that there is a huge disconnect between the skills and the needs of employers and what is being provided for by skills providers at the moment. Lots of providers are crying out for people from learners from a STEM background. And although that's a difficulty at the moment and there is that disconnect, what that does mean is there are great opportunities as well for young people and for employers and educationalists to create and design and provide something that is tailored and fills that gap really effectively. Now, we can all understand as educationalists why STEM, science, technology, engineering and maths knowledge and a background at school would be useful for us in everyday lives. Time was when I was at school in the 1970s and 1980s, and maybe when I was in tertiary education in the late 1980s and 1990s now. You were either arts or you were science, and never the twain would meet. Those days are gone. Those days are long gone. And it's so difficult now for we have colleagues in the audience, maybe Carrie will back me up on this later in the discussion. It's so difficult now to identify really specific job roles and that might exist in the future. We only need to look at the impact that artificial intelligence and ChatGPT has had over the last 6, 12, 18, 24 months on our society and our economy. So difficult to imagine what particular roles will be available. What we do know is that it will involve a large component revolving around STEM subjects. So we need people. So sorry, I don't know why we lost signal there. So the government have identified a need for these people to be trained in STEM subjects and fill these roles in whatever form they might take over the coming years. And we're also about changing the perception that STEM isn't for me. As I say, my educational career, my academic career started in the 70s, went through the 80s, and I graduated from university with my master's in 93. And you're either arts, which was me, or you were science, and never the twain would meet. But we'll hear from some of our panelists. I see Ioan has joined us, and Molly, really eloquent, wonderful young people who are on apprenticeship routes with JCB at the moment. And they will tell you about the breadth, I'm sure. I'll ask them to lay out for you the breadth of their learning that they've undertaken in the last few years, and how it's not an apprenticeship or a T-level is not a railroad into a science, technology and engineering or mathematical career for the rest of your working career. It's a springboard, and it opens doors rather than closes it. What we're talking about here are routes that keep young people's vocational and academic options open. That's what T-Levels and Apprenticeships do. Um, Please don't take my word for it. We'll be able to hear from the lived experience of people who are going to, I'm sure, give us some really enthusiastic testimony in a few minutes. Molly, Ioan, thanks for joining us. And what employers used to say, and what educationalists used to say when greybeards like me were in that system is that you better have your maths and you better have your English. That's what employers are looking for. But actually, what employers are looking for now is a lot more nuanced and a lot more subtle than that now. They're looking for candidates, number one, the main skill they want candidates to have is resilience and ability to solve problems. That's number one at the top of their wish list. Maths and English we can deal with, we can train, we can plug in some functional skills around that learner if they're struggling or they need support there. But what employers are looking for now are candidates and young people with resilience and ability to solve problems and who can demonstrate flexibility. That's at the number one of their wish list. Um, and as I say, employers, we'll hear from our two young people very, very shortly, um, are supported by enthusiastic employers like JCB, who are willing to put support and extra learning around them. They are willing to provide a breadth of experience during the course of an apprenticeship because they understand that their employees do need to be flexible. Um, all sectors are rapidly evolving now. Um, and we'll hear about some of the exciting projects that Ioan and Molly have been working on at a really high level. So employers understand that they need their employees to be flexible, and employers are looking for generalists now who are able to adapt and bounce into different sectors and adapt their role or take on new responsibilities really quickly. So the general thrust will be that undertaking a STEM subject, whether that's at A level or whether that's at a T level, a technological level, or whether that's at apprenticeship level. It's not, as might have been seemed in the past, a decision to commit your future to a career for eternity in science, technology, engineering, and maths. It's actually a way to keep your options open, to keep doors open. Maybe that will take you into marketing. Maybe that will take you into a negotiating role. Maybe that will take you into a collaborative role with government or other agencies, but with a STEM bias. So here we see some stats, some facts and figures to back up what I've just laid out for you guys. We're short of nearly 140,000 in the UK economy, nearly 140,000 people to fill digital roles. 43% of STEM vacancies at all levels, whether that's school leaver level or people who've completed an undergraduate or a postgraduate degree, 43% of those roles are struggling to be filled, or difficult to fill. 38%, over a third of UK businesses can't fill specialist digital vacancies. And only 7% of digital specialists are under 24. That tells us that people aren't coming on stream when they leave secondary or tertiary higher education. And yet 24% of our workforce is a STEM workforce. A quarter of our workforce have roles that revolve around these subjects. Almost half are professional science occupations. 16% of those are in ICT. 10% of those are in engineering occupations. So not insignificant sectors of the economy. People from BAME backgrounds, minority ethnic backgrounds, make up 12.8% of the UK population, but only 6% of our engineers come from a black or minority ethnic background, and that's a trend that is across the STEM spectrum. So after those stats and figures, after that little bit of scene setting, perhaps I just ought to explain what a T-level is. Um, it's a mode of learning for people who perhaps feel that A levels aren't for them. So it's a vocational mode of learning. But 80% of that young person's time, these are for 16 to 19-year-olds, will still be spent in school or college. 20% of their time will be spent on site in work experience. When they leave at the end of their T level, they'll get something called a level three. They'll get a T level equivalence of a level three. It's a 2-year course, just like A levels, and it's assessed on academic and technical skills. These young people won't be paid while they're on site and doing their work experience. Some employers choose to do that anyway, but there's no mandated, there's no compulsion for employers to pay their T-level learners. Compare and contrast with apprenticeships, which are almost a kind of flip reverse of that layout, where 80% of an apprenticeship's time of apprentices' time will be spent in the workplace. 20% will be spent in a more kind of traditional academic classroom environment. Apprenticeships can run from level 3, just above a GCSE, to an A-level grade, up to a undergraduate or postgraduate degree level. They can take 1 to 4 years to complete, depending on the level that young person is working at, or that learner is working at. And the assessment is based on knowledge, skills, and behaviour in the workplace. So it's accumulation of the knowledge, skills, and behaviour that young person has picked up and is able to demonstrate and verbalise from their time in the workplace. 80% in the workplace, 20% in a more traditional learning environment. The T-levels, the flip reverse. 80% in a more traditional classroom environment, 20% spent on time in a working vocational environment. We can see where these T-levels typically take people into all the kind of sectors and roles of employment that you'd imagine: construction, civil engineering, manufacturing, repair roles, design roles, construction roles, project delivery, process control. Maybe it's healthcare and healthcare science, maybe more traditional science roles. And I know, having worked in schools and taught in schools, that there is a worry, a concern. I wouldn't go so far as to say a suspicion, but maybe a wariness is an appropriate word among educationalists as to, but GCSEs and A levels, we understand they're traditional, they're proven. What will a T level mean for me? What will a T level mean for my young person? And also, perhaps parents or carers have concern about what that will mean for that young person's next step, or where can a T level take that young person. So if you go on the UCAS website, really useful page that demonstrates T-level equivalence, and it's laid out on the slide there. So depending on the distinction, the merit, or pass, marking and grading of that young person's T-level, we can see a UCAS tariff equivalence provided for us there. It's really simple to find that information now. UCAS have done a great job of providing that information for teachers, educationalists, young people, and their parents or carers. As I say, it's equivalent to an A-level, and we've heard testimony from fellow professionals at the Staffordshire Careers Hub, who will say that actually, when young people go into those interviews for college or university places, actually that taste of work in a genuine working professional environment has actually stood them in good stead. So they are able to demonstrate a commitment to learning and an ability to apply and solve problems and be flexible in the workplace, as well as in a more traditional classroom or lecture room environment. So there is that extra string to their bow, and that's specifically been vocalised by course providers and educationalists who have seen young people perhaps come from, we've heard testimony in previous webinars, perhaps come from healthcare and caring T-level environments. They've been very impressed with the calibre of the candidates, and they've been able to vocalise and demonstrate an understanding of actually what goes on in the real world, success in vocational learning and an ability to apply what they've learned in classrooms very quickly to a real world environment. Apprenticeships, as I say, they run through various levels, up to a postgraduate degree level. Um, Typical sorts of sectors that apprentices might go into after their endpoint assessment. Molly perhaps will talk to us about how she's managing, and I'm sure Ioan as well. They're both approaching endpoint assessments. Molly's very close. Endpoint assessment is the end, the finality, the conclusion of somebody's apprenticeship course. Uh, but the classic ones: technicians, engineering, software development, digital process, industry, maintenance technicians, the delivery of projects. But also, these T-level and apprenticeship qualifications provide a springboard to other sectors that perhaps we'd closed our minds to. They do take learners towards business management roles, roles in marketing and publicity, HR, into company law, distribution and logistics is another classic one. Because of the breadth of experience that these qualifications can deliver to young people. So that's kind of enough from me, I feel. Um, I've kind of laid out there, and you've been able to follow on the slides, a rough idea of where we are in the UK economy with our need um, learners and people to fill STEM roles. Key knowledge, skills, and behaviours that employers are looking for. Two potential routes for your learners if you're an educationalist insofar as T-levels, 16 to 19 years old, 80% spent in a traditional learning environment, 20% on-site in a work experience role. Do have A-level equivalents. Apprenticeships, anybody from 16 years old. Sometimes a lot more in depth. They can run from A-level equivalent up to and including postgraduate degree level. 80% of that young person's time will be spent in the workplace and 20% time in a more traditional classroom role. Often that equates to 4 days a week on site and 1 day at a college. But our slide there, our holding slide, does say ask the experts, and we're really, really fortunate to have two really eloquent and enthusiastic young people with us from the JCB Academy today, who I hope will tell us about their lived experience. That's Ioan Evans and Molly Burrows. Ioan and Molly, I hope you're there. I'm going to welcome you both. But first of all, perhaps I'll go to Molly, if that's okay. I've laid out, Molly, you're an apprenticeship student, you're approaching your endpoint assessment. What I've been at great pains to emphasise is that it's not a narrow qualification, that it doesn't railroad you, that it doesn't close doors to you. I wonder if that's a point I've made well, and it's a point you agree with. I'll hand over to you, Molly. Is there
Yeah,
something you'd like to say about that?
yeah, definitely. So, the great thing about the JCB apprenticeships is like the different placements you can do. So, specifically, my apprenticeship is called a manufacturing engineering apprenticeship, but I've not been limited to just do manufacturing engineering. There's people on my course who now work in sales, who do project management. But as part of the apprenticeship, I've been able to experience sort of the different functions. For me, I've had a preference. I enjoy manufacturing engineering, so that's predominantly what I do. But do get involved in other project works, and I've not been limited to just one type of work. The business supports our decision and what we want to do. So if I had a change of heart and said, "Oh, I want to go work for logistics," they'll be able to support that and find a placement for me that is something that I enjoy or want to do in the future.
And did you find that as you were making your decision whether to join JCB and whether to join take an apprenticeship route, was that breadth of experience, was that an attraction to you, or actually was that a cause of concern, that you would have to kind of be really, really flexible with the people that you meet, that the roles you fulfill, the type of learning and the learning style and the environments that you might encounter? Did you find that at all concerning, or was that a positive attraction for you, maybe?
that's a positive attraction. So if like for someone my age, at probably like 17, 18, who doesn't necessarily know what they want to do in the future, I think it's really hard at a young age to know specifically. So being able to work for a company that supports in those business rotations and sort of facilitates you being able to experience the different functions, like purchasing, project management, manufacturing engineering, electrical engineering. I think it's really great for a young person to have that opportunity to actually really find out what you want to do. It's not like going to university where you're stuck doing that degree route and you've got to stick with it then for the 3 or 4 years. Here, I can do my degree because that's fully funded by the company, but I can also then have the opportunity to change my mind and go somewhere else, but still have that degree as well and still start somewhere fresh if I wanted to. Because I think the great thing about even my degree is that it does cover some of those different business aspects, not just engineering. So I think that's was probably a really positive attraction for me. Is actually it's in my own hands what I want to do in the future. I'm not being railroaded. I get the choice. I get to choose where I want to work and actually find out what it is I enjoy doing.
That's a really interesting point that you made there, actually, Molly. My experience, my perception is that people think, okay, by the time you get to A level or or you're joining the world of work and you're committing to an apprenticeship, actually you're committing to a long-term career plan. But forgive me if I've misunderstood what you seem to be saying now. Is actually my experience is the flip reverse of that. Mine's the opposite. I'm the one with the flexibility. Perhaps somebody who's signing up for a 3 or to a 4 year program of study that actually they're the ones who are kind of shooting down their options. Did I understand correctly? Is that kind of
Yeah,
that's a really
I think
interesting concept.
yeah. Because yeah, you've got the opportunity here, and I know you and I'll probably say the same as well, but you do business rotations as part of the scheme. So you actually get the opportunity instead of like being a graduate who's got to then find a job that relates to their university degree. I've got the option to actually experience different functions and learn that role. I have the opportunity to do that, whereas necessarily graduates or other people, they'd find it difficult to get a job here that's not related to their degree. That makes sense. I think you're on mute, sorry.
Sorry,
That's all
thanks,
right.
Molly. I'm gonna pop to Ioan if that's all right. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining us, my friend. Um, and I know Ioan will almost certainly make a point about finances when it comes to apprenticeships and what attracted him. But I wonder if we could just follow up on what Molly said there. Do you feel that it's really interesting to me that perhaps people of a certain age have a perception that you're really committing to a very definite almost career path when you choose A levels, T levels, or apprenticeships. But actually, what we've heard from a person who's living this experience, like, actually, it's not that. What this gives me is that flexibility, that freedom of choice further down the road. It keeps the options open. Something that you'd agree with, Johan?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, apologise. My mic isn't working, so I'm trying to use my computer mic. So I'm sorry if you can hear a lot of background noise. Sorry about that. But yeah, I'd absolutely agree. So on my course, I'm doing level 6 now, which is degree level. And it's very much that situation, whether you go down a university route, whether you come and do an apprenticeship route. And a lot of my friends kind of thought, doing an apprenticeship, you tie yourself into working life, you go into that career for the rest of your life. But that's not the case.
Yeah.
So my degree is a business degree, so more of an arts degree. However, I've done placements in engineering. I've been all over it. So I've been manufacturing engineering for 6 months. I'm now in project management, which was very engineering heavy. But you could have a lot of financing stuff as well. So I think the experience that you get from an apprenticeship like this, the rotations, placements, is just second to none.
Thanks, Johan. And also, I did kind of you up there, my friend, because I did make the point that T-level learners, that it's not mandatory that they be paid, but you did raise it. It made us all smile, but it actually is a really valid point about the difference between somebody on an undergraduate degree course at a university and somebody like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously for the apprenticeship at the level that myself and Molly are at, we do get paid to work as well as our degree gets paid for. So I think I said last time it's earn while you learn, which for me was very big attraction because I can go and get the university life kind of social side on the weekend still. However, I've got the money to be able to go and enjoy myself. Whereas other people haven't got the experience that we've got and are perhaps studying full time, that perhaps don't have that. And you could argue that yes, they get the full-time social side. You know, if you're studying for college full time, and you might have a bit more free time. But to be honest with you, I would say that I was less disciplined in college to get my work done as I am now. So I would say actually, in terms of working time to free time, I'm probably not too far off that by doing an apprenticeship because of that discipline.
Thanks, Ioan. That's a really important point. Yet another interesting point that you've made, in that you actually feel that a university or a traditional academic education, higher education, or in the tertiary sector, there's a lot that goes with that in terms of young people perhaps are away from home, they're meeting new people, they're socializing in a different context, they're certainly learning in a different context. Uh, uh, but you don't feel that you're missing out in any way, shape, or form from that?
No, I would say, to be honest with you, when you do the apprenticeship, okay, yes, you are getting up and you're doing 9 to 5, and maybe for the first couple of weeks, when you do see your mates get placer than you and that sort of thing, you might think, oh, I don't know. However, the experience you get once you get settled into that work life, and the experience that you get from that, that firstly outweighs it, and secondly, as I think I raised last time, I find myself being quite disciplined to get the work done. I'm sure Molly's the same. I'm sure Molly's probably more disciplined than I am. To be fair, I'm sure she's more on it than I am. But you know, what you tend to do is you tend to make that time for yourself, and you tell yourself, "I will do this work." But actually, you find yourself that you do have time on the weekends to make up for that, and because you've got perhaps a little bit of pocket money, you can then enjoy yourself a bit more than worrying about how am I going to pay for the next meal kind of thing. So I would say yes, actually, you don't miss out on that because you can use the weekends to make up for that time.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And when we are talking about money and finance and salary, a university degree, it's not an insignificant amount of money, is it? A lot of students and their families are under an awful lot of financial pressure. So that's not an inconsiderate consideration. So a good point, well made. Molly, if I could just kind of bounce that to you as well. If I can phrase it as the kind of soft side of a university education, or a college education, um, do you feel that the same way as Ioan, that actually I feel like I'm getting that as well. I have access to that at the JCB Academy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like Johan said, like for me, I managed to sort of get through university with now having to do uni work on the weekends. So I planned it enough that just did it in the week. So then I still had the same amount of time at the weekends as my friends did to go and do stuff. And I think the great thing about apprenticeships is like, for example, we've taken on about 180 apprentices this year, is that you build up a network with all these people, and you think, with the university you miss out on the social side, but there's that many apprentice events and like meetups with colleagues that you still have that same level of like the soft side of university with an apprenticeship. So I don't feel like I've missed out like at all.
Thanks, Molly. Uh, Again, people might smile at that, but we're talking about the way that young people develop, and that is important to them. Um, Also, can I ask you, we started off our conversation talking about the breadth of the opportunities and experiences that you both have had there. Molly, um, do you also experience a kind of variety of learning styles and learning environments with JCB? Could you perhaps take us through some of the different styles of learning that you've undertaken, or the different types of experiences that you've had?
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to sort of sample a lot of different learning styles. So I had the opportunity this year to do some training in auditing our suppliers. So I got the opportunity to go to America for a week with the company, basically analysing their systems, their processes, how efficient they are, and actually understanding how to actually um, audit someone, if that makes sense. So I'm actually checklisting them, not the other way around. So I'm always having someone check my work. But in this situation, I had to go and check someone else's. So I learned sort of those skills on how to sort of be the reviewer instead of being the one being viewed. But I've also been on so many different like training courses, internal, external. So I did a composite training course where I got to make, I don't know if it's still on my desk, like a composite carbon fiber coaster. So it's like a combination of like classroom work, practical work, um, sitting in presentations, learning things. But there's loads of different types of learning styles. So I'm much more of a practical person. So actually applying the stuff that I've learned instead of sort of sitting down in workshops, for example. But there's so many different ways that sort of suits everyone, and you can tailor it to what best suits you. So some learning styles might not work for certain people, but they might work for others. So like I said, I'm more of a practical learner. So where I can, I'll try and get involved and try and learn things practically. Whether that's building something myself to understand if it's going to work or not, um, or like other people just sit in presentations, communicating ideas, stuff like that.
Thank you, Molly. That's awesome. Thank you. And to you, Ioan, as well. For those people in the audience who may or may not, but I suspect there's quite a lot of educationalists and teachers in our audience. What will become apparent to them and people like me who are listening to both of you talk is that what you're actually evidencing, for want of a better word, is quite a high level of self-knowledge. So you talked about, I'm probably actually being more efficient with the way I manage my work, Andy. Now I'm at the JCB Academy, perhaps than I was earlier when I was in a college environment.
So really, I mean, I think it's really because you got this work time and the work that you're given as well. You get quite some responsibility in some of this. It might sound stupid, but you do get given loads of responsibilities as an apprentice. You don't get to make the teas and that sort of thing. You really are given proper projects, and you are literally running them. And you don't really have the right training for that. But I think that very much teaches you about accountability, and you kind of get that accountability onto your work. That makes sense. You kind of feel like this is my work. Yeah, if you're in work, if it's my work, I need to do a good job of it. But then I feel very much the same about my university work and that side of things. So I would very much say that in comparison to sixth form, where perhaps you didn't feel as pressured because all your mates were kind of kicking back with you and that sort of thing. Now you're in a professional environment and you realise that to get anywhere, you've got to put in the work yourself. And it has taught me a lot of it's just a lot of discipline, really, planning out my time, which I would say I picked up from working.
Yeah, I think we're talking about being in a different environment, aren't we? A different atmosphere, a different culture, really, and that rubs off on people if they're of, if they're of the personality that they're willing to absorb that and take that on board. Um, so all that said, then, Ioan, perhaps what would you say to somebody who maybe thoughts of apprenticeship as kind of as crossed their bow? They've thought about it, but they kind of think, "Do you know what? I'm an academic person. I'm used to classrooms, working in industry or in a practical environment. That's not for me." And I guess that's a follow up on something that you touched on, that you kind of maybe considered yourself perhaps not so much from a pure scientific background. You just found yourself, or you found yourself by design in a science and engineering context, if I've not phrased that too bluntly.
So, um, I would say, I mean, absolutely go for it. I think traditionally where I'm from up north, apprenticeships are very much you manufacture and you go and do your welding and that's what you do. It's not about that. I would say I'm probably actually more of an academic person. In terms of in comparison to some of my friends who are more hands-on, I was more academic. However, I've got an interest in engineering, huge interest in the machinery and automotive, that kind of thing. So I would say absolutely, if you think about it, do some more research. I can't urge you enough to do some more research because even though I've done a business orientated apprenticeship, it hasn't stopped me from getting involved with the engineering side. So I'm not fixed to that particular area. And I can come off, as Molly said before, there's guys and girls on her scheme who have come off and done sales and marketing from engineering or that sort of thing. And equally, I could do the same. Even I'm on business side, I could go into the engineering side. So I would absolutely say, if you are, considering it, I urge you to do some more research. I urge you to, perhaps send a message out to some companies, go to open days and just do as much research as you can. So it doesn't matter what kind of person you are, there is a role for absolutely anybody with the right mindsets.
Awesome, thank you for that. And I'm just going to fire one more at you before we bounce back to your colleagues. Um, What was really interesting there is I keep kind of hitting this nail on the head because I really want to kind of undermine this presumption that there's, the science boffins and the arty types over there. And you and Molly both are great examples of it's not like that. If ever it was, those perceptions are outdated and outmoded. So thank you for those points. So we've talked about uh, um, perhaps apprenticeships shouldn't be ruled out by anybody, no matter what you think your learning style is now, and that will evolve as you become more mature and through different experiences as well. But could you just lay out for us how you came to your placement and your role at JCB? Was it an open day? Did you apply online? Could you take us through that process? Maybe who did you speak to? Was it teachers, lecturers, careers advisors, people at the company?
So for me, I would say that my college my college was very much you must go to university, you must do the traditional route if you're academic, which wasn't the right thing at all. Which is why I think this T-Levels is such a good opportunity, to be honest. But so my college was very much traditional that route. I knew about degree apprenticeships off a family friend who did a degree apprenticeship at JLR. So I heard about them from a younger age, and I was quite motivated to want to take that route. When the time came around to it, I applied to different apprenticeships. I got through to the last stage of a few, but I was COVID year, so they all got cancelled. That was that. And it came around to the next year, and I knew I'd actually take up a job as an accountant, which I didn't enjoy that much. There wasn't much flexibility in that role. I was very much, this is my job. So it wasn't an apprenticeship really. It was, this is your job. This is what you're doing. So when I came to apply for apprenticeships, I looked on the government websites. I already knew of the kind of the main companies I'd like to work for, so JCB being one of them. I mentioned kind of other engineers and Rolls-Royce, and I like my cars, so I went down that route as well. I looked online. I did some research on the apprenticeships, and the key criteria for me was what experience they're going to give me. And JCB put a huge emphasis on the ability to move around, choose your own placements. You weren't fixed in one job, and they wanted to help us grow. And that was kind of the thing that did it for me then. So I applied online, sent in my CV, went through the process of assessment centres and all of the tests that you go through, and then here I am. I think you're on mute, Andy, sorry.
Beg pardon,
There you go.
old man. Sometimes I forget these. Thank you for making those. Thank you for making those points so eloquently. And also, this webinar will be recorded and distributed across schools and colleges around Staffordshire. So hopefully, that testimony will encourage teachers, staff, maybe even young people who watch this the days and weeks and months to come. That actually, there are routes for me that maybe university is not for me. Maybe I should consider an apprenticeship or a T-level more seriously. They don't have to make that decision, but at least consider them more seriously. Molly, I'm going to come to you if that's all right. We talked about apprenticeships, and your endpoint assessment is imminent, I believe, if memory serves. I don't want to give the impression, or we shouldn't give the impression, that apprentices are people who go into work, they get a little bit of informal training, and it'll be all right after that, and they're part of the team. Actually, as well as that vocational learning component, it's actually a very rigorous academic standard you're held to, and the endpoint assessment is something that is actually quite a full working day, and it's actually quite a rigorous, strenuous, for some people really quite stressful time as they approach the culmination, the conclusion of their apprenticeship. Would you take us through what the endpoint assessment is, what you're going to do, how you've planned, how you're going to manage that? Would you just describe to us what you're going through and what you're preparing for right now?
Yeah, so the endpoint assessment is basically a culmination of the last 4 years of my apprenticeship to basically prove that I'm a competent manufacturing engineer. So, as part of the endpoint assessment, I have to meet certain criteria. So, we call these KSBs, knowledge, skills, and behaviours. So, there's about 7 in each category. And I've got to produce pieces of work, evidence that basically supports and proves that I can meet each of the criteria. So this is done over the duration of the 4 years, but I know some apprentices only do their sort of portfolio work in the last few months after they finish the degree, sort of cram it all in. But it makes it much easier just do your evidence as you go through your apprenticeship. So the process includes doing, I think it's like an hour presentation, an hour and a half occupational professional discussion that's based on the portfolio of work you submit. So we were sort of guided that we have to produce 10 reports every year for each of the years of our apprenticeship. Then this gets compiled, and then you have to provide justification as part of your evidence of why you've met that certain criteria, and then someone comes in and assesses you based on that. But the process so far has taken me, so I submitted all my work in July, probably took me a couple of weeks to complete it all. And then since July, I've been waiting for a date for my interview. So I've already prepared my presentation because I'm quite a prepared person, organised. But I'm just waiting for a date. So they sort of anticipate that the endpoint assessment takes around 6 months to complete. So from the point that you sort of do all your work, submit it, and then wait for your presentation, and then through to getting your results. So I'm just in the process of waiting for my interview date, but I'm organised, so yeah, I'm ready to go as soon as that comes through. But it is quite sort of a time-consuming process, and it's not just how you do your apprenticeship, you get a degree. You do have to then go through additional steps to prove that you are competent in your job.
Great. And if anybody were in any doubt as to how rigorous the endpoint assessment is, I think you've just squashed that for them,
Yeah,
Molly. Yeah, absolutely. So what we're talking about is academic. It's a cross between or an amalgamation of an academic assessment and a college oral or a university viva, isn't it? It's a face-to-face assessment of your KS skills, your knowledge, skills, and behaviours, as well as that perhaps that work portfolio that you might submit. I'm glad I'm not the only one who forgot to switch their mute off.
yeah. So
Thanks for making me
it's
feel better,
yeah.
Molly.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's just technology nowadays. It's too complicated. But it's also a great opportunity to showcase all the sort of work
Yeah.
you've done and be able to sort of sell yourself and be like, you know what, I've done this and I've worked on these amazing projects. And I think it's really good as well because I think one of the things as well we struggle with is being able to showcase
Mm.
ourselves, and being able to do that and show our capabilities is an important skill to have, I think, especially if we want to transfer into other jobs or other careers. We've got this breadth of experience, and and being able to talk about that and actually showcase our skills and talents is quite an important thing to have, and also quite difficult to do. Especially, I struggled with writing a CV. Um, Being able to talk about my experiences, so this helps put that into practice. So compiling this whole report of everything I've done is actually useful if I want to then write or update my CV in the future.
I think from somebody who's also been through that process, as well as my degree, I went through an apprenticeship as well. Um, what was it can be quite stressful and nerve-wracking, but also it's a really fulfilling process when you look at that evidence portfolio and the feedback that you get from your assessor is invariably really constructive. But if you got through that and you've got to that point, it's usually really going to be very positive and fulfilling. And it's nice at that point to look back and see the journey that you've made, all the experiences that you had, and the skills that you've acquired. That one's for you, Molly. Would you kind of
Yeah,
concur? Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So, like specifically for the portfolio, you have to evidence all these different skills, and actually, it's really fulfilling to actually say, actually, I can do this,
Yeah.
and being able to actually pinpoint what I've done, all the behaviours and knowledges, makes like gives me such a breadth of experience, but also makes me very transferable. If I ever wanted to move into a different role,
Mm.
I can quite easily say, well, I've already met these skills, I've already met these knowledges, I've already met these behaviours. I am competent sort of at manufacturing engineering.
If ever you wanted to move into another role, perhaps a webinar presenter as well, Molly, because you're making all my points for me. Thank you.
No
And
worries.
reinforce no, it's reinforcing with real life lived experience from young people. Not just something that a tutor is stating as fact, that it is about flexibility. It is about taking agency over your learning. It is about that breadth and flexibility in how you respond to the next challenge. It's not about you're going to be doing this and this is your career for the next 30 years or 40 years of your working life, because nobody can predict that anymore in the way that we could only a few decades ago. Ioan, the same to you. Whereabouts are you with your learning, my friend? Would you bring us up to speed? And is your EPA, your endpoint assessment, imminent? Thanks, Molly. Thank you.
Sure. So I am about a year behind Molly, I'd say. So
Okay.
I think the earliest I can do my EPA is October next year. That's provided that I am on top of everything. Everything's ready to go. But to be honest, I'm feeling, touch wood, fairly confident for now, and seems to be getting on with university work okay. So I think it'll be four years by that point. The course will be just under 4 years. So yeah, it's a good amount of length. But I compare to. I know I'm not at T-level stage, but I'm at level 6 stage. But where my friends are in university, I've got the same degree as one or two of them, exactly the same degree. I mean, apart from I've had 3-4 years of experience, I've done it in only a few months longer than themselves. So to be honest with you, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer for my end that you get that experience, because if it comes to it and we're both fighting for the same job and it comes down to the last bit, he's going to look at the experience. And the same for T-levels. You know, if you come out of T-levels and you're applying for your next apprenticeship, or you're doing whatever you're doing next, all of a sudden they're going to look at your experience. You've had 2 years, 3 years of working. I think that's just amazing.
For sure, yeah, and that's incredibly valuable. And as I said earlier in the presentation, we have had testimony in previous webinars from North Staffs Colleges Group and the Careers Hub in Staffordshire and North Staffs. Particularly people from the care sector who wanted to work in the care sector, who'd done a T-level, connected with the care sector, and then applied to university. The universities and the colleges were so impressed with what they'd been able to achieve over the course of their T-levels, that it wasn't just an academic qualification, that they could point to experiences, they could verbalise and demonstrate knowledge, skills and behaviours. And that is really important as well, that you're able to verbalise it and use the vocabulary and the language of the industry and the sector, and you're confident in having that communication. So your apprenticeship will finish and your qualification will be BSc, BA, BEng?
So mine will be a BA,
Okay.
and then I also get chartership on top of that. However, I think I said before that I'm very much interested in engineering. The possibility definitely isn't off the table for me to go on and do engineering qualification at later points, whether that be a level 4 or whatever that might be. I am very much interested in doing that, just so I get, just basically develop my learning further. I think because I can prove, as an apprentice, you can prove that you can do this learning with the working. That opens those doors for you, because you've already proved it once. Why wouldn't you be able to do it again? But I think this apprenticeship has been very flexible, been really flexible. You're not shoehorned down this one corridor. You can go off and explore all these different avenues at your own disposal, which really helps develop your career. I think I said that last time. It's not really a job. It is more of it is definitely helping your career in the long run.
Yeah, very well put. And also, we've talked about agency and taking responsibility for your own learning, but how have you found that how have you found that 80-20, 80%, 20% split, balancing the learning and the time spent on site or your vocational learning? How have you managed to balance those out? Has that been difficult, or you get support from JCB, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we do get support from JCB. We are meant to have our 20% a week. So whether that's half a day or a day of learning to yourself within work time, and then whatever else you want on top of that. I won't disguise it. Sometimes it is hard, because sometimes you've got the work on, and I think to have the mindset student apprenticeship, you are very much orientated by your work. Sometimes you might let that slip. However, the company supports that. And if you say, to your manager, look, I've had to skip out this week of work. It's 2 weeks of doing my offer job. Can I do it? And I'd say all the times I've done that, they've let me have a full day or whatever I need just to be able to catch up. So as long as you're on top of that and you are the one who is driving that, saying, I need this time, because it is in our contracts, we have that time, then I would say it's quite easy to discipline yourself and get the work done in that time. And because you've just got that set time to do it in the work time, you do very much headphones on, get down to it, ignore distractions. So yes, it can be difficult sometimes, but overall, I'd say it really isn't that bad at all.
For those of us who are listening, perhaps that bit of vocabulary slid by. Off the job is that Ioan's referring to. That's the 20% that an apprentice will spend, perhaps in a more traditional learning environment. But it might well be, as Ioan stated there, it might well be that he's at his desk, or it might be perhaps a new responsibility or some specific learning that he's been asked to undertake, which would count as on the job, off the job learning as well. So that off the job bit of vocabulary, that's that 20% that Ioan was talking about. Molly, could I come to you? How's that worked out for you? Ioan was very frank and honest about that. Sometimes it's tricky. We're in a multinational, world famous company. We've got lots of stuff to do. I have responsibilities. Sometimes it is, as we all know, it's difficult to manage priorities. How have you found it?
I think, like Ioan said, JCB are very accommodating. So, as part of like our 20% off the job, JCB also entitle us to an extra 5 study days a year. So these are days we can take randomly throughout the year when we really need to be able to catch up on coursework or revise for exams. So not only do we get time sort of in work if we like need 20 or 30 minutes just to work on it, we also get full working days assigned just specifically to do university work, which I found's been really great. Um, and for me, like I never used to do uni work on the weekends. I'd always come into work super early and then start my day and do it like that. But managers are really flexible as well. Like if I needed some extra time to do it, or they'd recognise that okay, my deadline's coming up. Are there ways they can support me? But they understand, JCB our sort of funding, or the government's funding our apprenticeship and our degree. So it's in their benefit as well that we do well, because it's going to benefit us in the team. They want us to do well because they want us to perform better. So if I'm, making sure I do my best at university, then it's really benefit me and the company as well. So they know that, and they know they're super flexible with supporting us. So yeah.
Right. Thanks, Molly. I'm just looking at the time here, and we do have, for those of you in the audience, please feel free to fire any questions we've got. But I'm just thoroughly enjoying listening to these two young people talk, so I'm definitely going to make the most of them. But if you've got some questions, do please fire them in just before we start to wrap up. Molly, I'm going to give you another one if you wouldn't mind. So, endpoint assessment is in sight. We haven't got a date yet, but it's imminent. After that, it's all over, and we're into the grind of the world of work. Or is it slightly different for you? What's next on the horizon? Because I know you've been doing some really exciting stuff, or you get exciting stuff waiting for you.
Yeah. So I can't really talk about what's next because it's like confidential. So mostly the work I work on is like hydrogen like research. So like looking at what's next for the business, like looking at like future investments, which I can't share. So that's where I'm staying. So basically I do have like a contract sort of lined up already. So as soon as I finish my endpoint assessment, then I'll move into this new hydrogen role, still doing manufacturing engineering, still doing what I'm used to, but my plan is to stay sort of with JCB because I've had such a great experience here. So for me as well, it's not just like right, that's it. I'm starting my working life because for me, I started that 4 years ago. So it's sort of no different
Mm,
now. I'm integrated well into JCB. It's like feels no different, and it's not. It doesn't say how start working life. It's not mundane.
mm.
I still have the same enthusiasm I did 4 years ago. So for me, it's more exciting. So yeah, I'm ready to basically do the same job I'm doing now, but on a bit more money.
Okay. I'm working on hydrogen projects, and is that just with JCB, or would you be collaborating with agencies who are really quite important at a national level, for instance? Maybe if you could share that with us.
Yeah, yeah. So I did a workshop last week, which was all sort of like industry leaders relating to like hydrogen. Can't share really what we're talking about, but yeah.
Okay.
So JCB is collaborating. So we do a lot of work with sort of like the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, like Sheffield. We work with the National Composite Centre as well, um, based on hydrogen. But because hydrogen is so new, there's a lot of people who approach JCB and specifically who phone up our chairman and say, "Oh, have you seen the latest in hydrogen? Like latest technologies?" So for us, hydrogen is still like a learning thing. So it's quite exciting for me because I'm part of that learning journey. So I get to meet um, loads of new people as part of my role, it's great for networking. Um, and it's, really great as well, exposure for me to be able to speak to these industry experts as well and actually provide some input, some feedback from a JCB perspective. So yeah, that's sort of what the future holds for me.
And what an economic, social, environmental impact that might have as well. How exciting. The point I was trying to make in my very flippant way was that it doesn't stop. That continuous
Yeah.
professional development doesn't stop. And Ioan, over to you. I know you touched on it a little bit. Could you just in our last few moments run us through what your plans might be for the future once that endpoint assessment arrives? And I'm sure you'll fly through it. What's next on the horizon for you? You're kind of weighing up options right now.
Absolutely. So I've got, as I say, really about a year left, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how good I'm, as I say, with my evidence. But I'm really taking this opportunity now to try different placements that I perhaps maybe considered once upon a time, or something that wouldn't normally be my normal scope. Because I've tried a few placements now. I've done 7 placements out of business. I know what I do like and what I don't like. And there's one or two that have kind of screamed out to me as being I've really can see myself doing that, such as manufacturing engineering, or I was working in a growth team at one point as well. And I think now it's just really trying to also develop my skills for how in terms of progression in the long run. What skills might I need later on down the line? What do I need to learn? So it's learning the processes for me now. And there's a few things that I maybe have considered in the past, but I haven't really explored any further. And then from there, it's really trying to decide what I want to do then, or what the business wants. Which is going to be a difficult decision, I think, because there hasn't been anything I haven't liked. So
yeah, nice position to be in. Nice
position to be
difficulty
in,
to have.
but it's
Yeah.
hard to narrow it down. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
Good for you. Well, we are going to have to wrap it up in the next couple of minutes, but hopefully both Molly and Ioan will stay online a little bit after we close the meeting. But I just wanted to share for those educators amongst us that there are some really, really good resources out there, and we are putting together a resource pack that will go out to you. But this is a fantastic resource. I just wanted to share this with you. This is stem.org.uk, and it's got incredibly brilliant and wonderful resources for educators and teachers and their support staff. There are toolkits, there are resources, there are potential lesson plans. It's just a great site. So if you're I like the sound of that. I like the way those young people are talking. Maybe I should offer this to my young people as an option. But how do I embed that at school? How could we work that into the curriculum or our lessons? stem.org.uk. Please go and check it out. It's absolutely brilliant. iCloud's a classic one for teachers as well. Just skidding through before, because I don't want to keep people at school too long. techskills.org. The IET, Engineering Institute, very good with obviously with a specific, very tight focus on engineering. Career map, more general, when we're looking at job opportunities, training opportunities. And it's left for me really to say thank you for joining us. I understand that a few people sent last minute kind of, we can't be there, things have happened, and that's okay. We understand that, but please be aware that this will be sent out as a recording to you with the resource kit. Thank you for joining us. You know where we are if you need us. Our contact details are there. But thank you for your company. Ioan and Molly, if you just stay online for a couple of moments. But otherwise, please contact us with any queries, and have a great evening. Thanks for being with us.